Hello, and welcome to part 3 of the cutting room, where I teach you a sewing skill, although this one technically doesn't involve any sewing. Today I'll be hemming a pair of athletic pants. The way I'll be hemming these is using a heat bonded tape. I think this will be a really useful method for anyone who likes to crop their t-shirts or other knit garments, but don't like how the cut edge curls and rolls afterwards, but you don't want to sew. I think this will be the method for you. All right, let's get into it. The tools you'll need for the bonded hem are a measuring tape, safety pins, chalk or some other fabric marking tool, heat bonded tape, a tailor's ham, a ruler, scissors, and an iron. The next step is to fit your pants to decide on the length. If you've seen my other videos, then this is the same process, but if not, no worries, I'm gonna go over the steps again now. The reason you want to try them on is to be able to see the length in context. I personally recommend to try them on with shoes, especially if you're going for a full-length pant, because it is the easiest way to see how it lays over your shoe, whether or not it has a break, to determine if it's the length that you really like and want to keep. You'll want to fold up the pant leg on one leg and just play around with it until you like how it looks. Side note, if you're going for a crop that's above the ankle, you may not need to see it with a shoe, but I do find that it's just an easy way to be able to see everything together and know for sure that that's the length that you like. Once you have it rolled up to a place that you're happy with, then you'll just need to secure it in place with safety pins. I like to pin on the inseam, the outseam, and then in the middle of the front and the back of the leg. These are the anchor points that make sure that it doesn't shift around, especially if you're not going to be able to finish all the steps in one day. This way, it won't budge. A random side note to any athletic athleisure designers out there, this is on a pair of Lulus, but I've seen this on other brands as well, is this baffling adjustment. I sort of understand it, that it's an easy loop to pull, but then there's no way to secure that other than to knot it, which is insane because that's so annoying to have to undo and do. That just breaks down this nice elastic so much, and then it also rolls inside here weird. Why is this not just a drawstring, or at least has toggle would be annoying because that would lay against your skin and be bulky, but why is this not a drawstring? You're gonna do adjustment. This is not the way. This is so annoying. Please don't do this anymore. I'm gonna have to replace this because it drives me insane. All right, and now we've got the athletic pants folded in half with the front facing out. You've got your crotch folded out, got your legs all nice and smooth and put on top of one another. If you want the other two methods, same deal here. You're gonna wanna measure your inseam down to the finished length, mark it down. This one's gonna be a little bit of a different method because this is gonna be bonded, and because it's bonded, you only need just that hem height. So my length on these are about a 27, and then looks like the hem height is a 3/4 inch. Another thing to keep in mind with these bonded hems, especially on stretchy knit athletic material like this, is that they'll never press super flat. They'll always have kind of a little bit of a bubble roll because of the nature of the fabric. So that's why this little 3/4 is a good kind of as generous of a hem as you really want to do on this type of finish. So you can kind of see on the outside where you can see the 1/2 inch tape pressed nice and flat, and then there's that little 1/4 extra. If you were finishing your pants with just a cut edge, you would be done at this point. Now these are ready to take to the iron to the bonding tape. We're doing the heat bond. So this is the kind I got. I got one that should stretch a little bit with the material. The one that's used on this is more of like a heavier duty, probably much nicer one. There's like not as much give, but that's what I've got and what we'll use. Okay, I haven't used this one before, so we are doing a little test on the excess that we cut off from the bottom. The directions say, place your strip, there's a glue side and then a paper backing. You want to put the glue side down, keep the backing on, and you place and hold the iron on the liner for 5 seconds until it's all bonded. Does it look like it's bonded? Yeah. Then you let it cool down, peel off the paper liner, then you would put the adhesive side down, so you fold up your little hem, and then press again for 20 seconds until it's all bonded. That peeled off pretty easy. Looks like it may not have bonded all the way. See where the little bubbles are. Oh, I wonder if that's where the little steam parts of my iron are. Okay, so I gotta keep in mind that those portions aren't that hot, so I'm gonna need to kind of make sure I move in sections over the whole thing. But otherwise, let's see once I roll it down how well it does. Okay, so pressed for 20 seconds. Oh, why didn't that bond? Press and hold. Oh, this one's supposed to be with steam. Oh, it feels like it's bonding now. Okay, so I pressed with steam, waiting for it to cool down before I check the strength of this. All right, so this has cooled down. You can see still stretches, and then feels pretty sturdy, pulling up a bit on that, but otherwise feels pretty good. Hey, I like that. Okay, the other thing I think I'm gonna do, because I like this detail, so there's a tiny little piece that's bonded over the side seam, because this part is pretty bulky, so it has kind of like a little extra reinforcement, that's the word that I'm looking for, because this probably will have a tendency to pull up otherwise. So I'm going to use this scrap to do that. So making those little reinforcement pieces, I'm just doing that 5 seconds, no steam, little strips. Then once it cools down, I'll cut my little reinforcement pieces out of them. I'm trying to press more with the tip of my iron because it doesn't have the little vent holes that are cooler in those spots. So then I can cut my little reinforcement strips from these little guys. All right, I'll set those aside. The other step I forgot before putting the bond onto my pant leg is to know how much I need. So easiest way, boop, 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 is to measure across the leg opening, 11¼ so that's 22½. So that's what I'm going to need in length for the bond. Okay, I've got my strips of heat bond prepped. Now we're gonna start pressing. So I'm using my little tailor's ham here because I feel like it will be easier to do in sections. I'm gonna start over my inseam because I always like to have any potential mistakes be hidden. So I start on my inseam. I'm using this little extra bit of tape because I ripped a little bit of the backing on this strip, but I don't want to waste it. So I'm just covering that little piece where it might potentially stick to my iron. Holding that little bit in place, we're just gonna go kind of little by little, pressing down and bonding the tape onto the pant. In case I didn't mention it earlier, your pants should be inside out at this point, unless you want your hem to be folded up to the front. I mean, listen, no wrong answers. If that's the look you want, then you'll do it that way. But I'm having mine hemmed the traditional way, going inside. So your pants should be inside out, doing little 5 seconds. It's all bonded, inching our way along and making sure that the edge of the tape is aligned with the edge of your pant, but not going over, because if it goes outside of the hem, you'll have exposed glue, and then that'll get sticky and messy on your iron, which would be annoying. It is safer to go a little bit backed up, but not too much, because then otherwise you'll have a little flap, which would also be annoying. So just take your time. Unfortunately, these things aren't like super quick, but they are doable. And I feel like we should all learn these little skills that help us to love and care for our clothes better. So yeah, you're doing this all the way around with the paper on. Just another side note with this heat bond, although it does stretch, you don't want to use it like elastic where you're like stretching it to fit or anything like that. So if you need to, always like cut a little bit of excess, because you can always trim what you don't need at the end, but don't be trying to stretch the bond if there's too little bond to meet your fabric, and make sure that your fabric is like flat and relaxed, that you're not stretching the fabric either, because otherwise you're gonna like heat seal puckers into it. Just take your time and make sure everything's nice and flat and relaxed, and neither fabric nor your heat bond is getting stretched. Okay, we made it all the way around. I did end up giving myself a little bit of extra, so I trimmed that and then went around again to make sure that things were bonded. There's probably a few areas that haven't super stuck, but thankfully there will be another chance when I bond it to itself. We peel off the backing. Looks pretty good so far. I'm gonna put the ham back in, flip this up. Only needs to be 3/4 of an inch. I will say for this bonding method, having something in between, regardless of whether you have this ham or not. I did get these from Wawa online, and they were not very expensive, and they're very handy for all sorts of pressing needs. So I would recommend, but you will want to have something in between, because this is a heat sealed bonding tape. If you were to press on top of it, like, you're gonna end up bonding the other side not where you want it to be. So having this separation is important. Just gonna bust out my ruler, make sure I get the right height, and then set your iron to have steam and start pressing. Again, I like to start at the inseam, or I forget, I'm also gonna cut out my little reinforcements. I'm gonna make mine a little bigger than the ones that were in the pant. Little tiny rectangle with rounded edges. I think the rounded edges probably help because sharp corners tend to peel up easier, is my guess. But I was not an athletic designer, so that's just my guess. Anyhow, I think I'll wait to put those on until I've gone around the whole thing, but those are prepped and ready. Just in case you were thinking that the bonding, like heat bond tape, is like gluing and that it would be super fast, it's definitely not. I think it's looking clean, and I'm excited to see how it ends up turning out, but just in case you were thinking that this was gonna be like super quick no-sew technique, definitely not super quick, but no-sew. All right, I think I have finally finished one of these heat bonded hems. I did have to make another one of these little reinforcement pieces, because for some reason on the other one, I think I might have done the first like half of the bonding a little too long, and like maybe it cooked the glue and so it just wasn't sticking. But I did a second one and it bonded fine. So I think all in all, it did pretty good. I think I accidentally heat set a little ripple into one part of it, but oh well. So far, my recommendations are just to like make sure you go really slow with this, because it's not super forgiving, but also not crazy impossible. So if you're looking for something that's a little bit cleaner than a raw edge and isn't sewing, this might work for you. We have finished pressing both. One of my reinforcement pieces is not staying too well, but I don't feel like peeling the whole thing off and starting again. So we're gonna see how this washes and wears. Maybe I'll have an update later, but so far, doesn't look too bad. Still keeps a little bit of that stretch. It feels pretty solid, looks nice and clean from the outside, which is what I wanted. So that is that for this hemming method. Once it's pressed and bonded, you're done. That one's finished. So little update, because I was able to wear them camping over the weekend and then wash them. For the most part, the bond held up. No significant like peeling or anything on the one leg. The other leg, there was one of my reinforcements did peel up a little bit, but these also had a little bit more of like a questionable strip of the bonding tape. So I can probably just make a new one of these out of the scraps that I have left. And then I also removed the original elastic like loop hole in the waistband, just because the mechanic of that was so silly to me. I just took it out and then replaced it with a shoelace. So that works for me. And I'm glad that I'm now able to wear these pants. It's a little update on that in case you were curious. All right, that's it. Thanks so much for watching, and I hope you learned something and that it helps you to enjoy and wear your clothes more. If you have any questions or suggestions for other skills that you want to learn, please leave them in the comments below. And if you enjoyed this and want to learn some more actual sewing techniques, please hit that subscribe and you'll be notified when they're up. All right, see you in the next one.